Hello, welcome to another video where I talk about card games. Different background as well, which is awesome. I can set up my Baymax post and stuff soon. Um, yeah, sort of the set 8 is coming out. I'm kind of probably done with set 7 content, even though I do have UK Games Expo coming up. And Store Champs, this will be the last day you can do a Store Champs, and they're pretty much over as well. So set 7 content is probably come to an end, and we're on to set 8, which is pretty cool. And it comes out on the Friday of filming this, and I'm pretty excited for it. I think there's a lot of game-changing things, and I think my prediction is that it's an Amber Steel and Emerald Steel meta. I think there's a few cards, or there's one card in particular that just makes it so steel is going to be the dominant color of the set. Of course, I put a tweet out about this. Like every set, we're like, oh, there's this new card. There's this one particular card that will dominate and change everything. The prime example is always Jafar in set 3. When that was coming out, there was the Jafar, the legendary, when you exert it, and when you draw a card, you gain one law, so you could shift it, seeing whole new world, and they end up being kind of a fluke and not really that impactful. I mean, the deck's sort of it does see play, it is a pretty good deck, but overall, like it didn't really do as well as what we first anticipated. But I think some of the cards in here that I'm going to mention generally are quite meta shaping, and later on into the sets, I mean, at least set 7 before the ban, like Tamatoa and Scrooge McDuck. Both the legendaries were so impactful, they pretty much just made Sapphire decks the most dominant decks in the game. So there is generally cards that can be released that will either, have a impact on other cards and just bring up to a power level that's unbeatable. But yeah, looking for all the set 8 cards. Like, of course, I've done my testing internally, and there's online platforms as well that we managed to get some games in and get to see what's popular. And just sort of the cards that I think are the most meta shaping or meta important ones. And we start off with Maui Stubborn Trickster, which I don't think is like that hugely meta shaping, but it will come into effect when I say that the meta is looking like it's going to be an Emerald Steel or a Amber Steel meta, because the issue with Green Steel is, or Emerald Steel, sorry, is that I wouldn't say the issue is, but one of the things with them is they don't really have this like huge top end. So you tend to, I played it recently. I played it at Store Champs yesterday. I managed to get top 4 of it. When you're in like the winning spot, or the point where you can flip the game and start racing for the law, you don't really have a big thing you just throw on the board to say like, and I've won. Like after what's it, Ruby Sapphire, like be prepared to the board or something like that. They tend to just slam down McDuck Manners or something and say, well, you can't win now. Or they used to put down the Giant Hammer Tower and say, like, well, we're going to win. Or the Lucky Dime. And Ruby Amethyst has the same as well. Like, after they be prepared at the board, they tend to, like, put down, like, locations or whatever and just basically get you into a point where you can't win. So if you, with Emerald Steel, it's like you lock them out of the game and then you start turning sideways with your goons. And if you're lucky enough to have any Prince Johns on the board, you start questing with the Prince Johns as well. But overall, yeah, it's like they don't have a big thing. I mean, I think the Pete shift line has been quite important for that. It's like I've won the game, and also his Space Pirate Pete, so you can't sing, and he's gonna just be on the board and be obnoxious and get me to the end of the game. But this being a free quester, having loads of different effects that if you banished it, so if you find yourself getting back into the game, you can banish all opposing items, locations, or put 2 damage on all opposing characters. It's just like it just so locks you in. It's like I wouldn't say it's a win more. It's just sort of like locking in that win. It can probably feel like a win more sometimes if you're gonna win anyway. But just questing for the win with like what's his name, Prince John and stuff like that. It just doesn't feel amazing in my opinion. If you get a couple out, you can keep racing for it, but it's just turning that clock and like being able to push for the finish line is what I think this card will be really good for. You may only play like a 1 or 2 off, but I think it's pretty cool. I don't think it's massively impactful. It might even be up to the point where you cut it just for room for other things, but I think it's a pretty cool card, and I think it's definitely one that people should be getting copies of. They launched of the set. Arthur, Arthur again is that card where I think a lot of people were hoping that it's just going to instantly be a staple in Kiwi. Testing has shown, I think it does more impact play in a deck that would be playing Whole New World, where, skipping that draw step is almost not that important to you. It's not like this major big thing. You're only going to lose 1 card a turn, but you've played Whole New World, so you get to play a bunch more, and you could play like Visions or something like that, or like a Gaston, the 6 cost one to keep scrying and keep the deck going. So missing that draw turn isn't the worst. That even in Kiwi, like I've managed to get amazing lines where, you know, you dump the hand, get the Arthur on board, then you can play like Desperate Plan or a dock or whatever, and just keep drawing more and more cards. And the skipping the draw phase doesn't matter because you're probably in a spot where you're going to win the game anyway. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's also pretty cool that like I'm looking at more in Kiwi. I do think it works quite well in a deck that uses Whole New World, so maybe a sort of ramp build one. But I've found that it's just great that we have this like big thing we can throw on the board. You know, like a lot of the aggressive decks, like Churnadogs has like the Churnabok that it can just put down. Even mentioning Emerald Steel has like Space Pirate Pete or like this Maui stubborn Trickster and like big sisus as well. Like loads of decks just has like a big thing they can just throw on the board at some point, and we never really got that in Kiwi. In Sapphire Steel Ramp, you used to have like the big Tamatowers and stuff, but like we never had like a big, just huge statted character we could throw out there. But now we do. So I'm definitely going to see play with this. I think it takes a lot of getting used to. I think you. I'm not saying I'm like some mastermind of TCGs, but I think playing without your draw step is a big thing to ask for a player. You know, you can't even if you're in a spot where you're down to a couple cards with three cards in hand, and one of them's an Arthur, you might have to play the Arthur just to get something on board. But it might also be the reason why you lose because they can just stall it. They can say like, well, I can still race this Arthur. So I think it does take a lot of playing. It does take a lot of getting used to, but it's a really fundamentally interesting card. And a lot of games I've got where it's like I will get the hand down to just being Desperate Plan in hand or dock, and then I'll play Arthur, knowing that I won't draw another card. So if it's Desperate Plan, I know I won't like brick and then have to, because Desperate Plan requires you have an empty hand to draw those three cards. You know, it stops you doing that, then you can play it. Of course, against like an Emerald deck, they might be able to discard that one last card in hand. So it's a really fundamentally quite interesting card, and I think it's added a lot of layers to Kiwi in my testing. And I think as well, like in these ramp Sapphire Steels, like just being able to wheel and then dump Arthurs on the board. Like once you've played one as well, and say you're at 8 ink, you could play another one, or you could play another one the next turn because the skipping draw it doesn't stack. You know, once you've skipped your draw phase, you skip your draw phase, so you could get this like huge board. And if you've got two on board questing for six, like against a Ruby deck, they might just have to be prepared you anyway. Like Amber Steel might have to play World's Greatest Criminal Mind, or they might have to play their own wheel, and it's just fundamentally it adds a lot of layers to the game. I think a lot of like old schooly Magic players will look at it and think it's terrible because you know, drawing is really powerful in card games and it's quite a big important thing. But I think for Lorcana it's a little bit different and it's a little bit interesting. So yeah, I'm definitely going to try and get my playset of that when they start. Desperate Plan. This is the card that Ali has told me many times because I really want to get a playset of the enchanted version. She's told me to not hype this card up because that might bring the value of it up. I don't think I have that much media presence, but I probably do. I don't know actually at all. The Alice's never went up when I started posting about Kiwi, so that's that. But Desperate Plan, yeah, it's just really quite impactful in Kiwi. It extends your ability to dock draw, the same way that you know you play dock and you just discard your hand and draw a couple cards. It has a very similar effect. You know, if you have no cards in hand, you can draw up to you have three cards in hand. The other part of the card, otherwise choose and discard any number of cards, then draw them. It will become very niche when I need that. I've only ever used it after someone's played Whole New World against me and I'm like hunting for a Pete or something. But you know, just the ability to keep the gas going. And as I say, it pairs so well with that Arthur and a lot of the things that I'm trying to do in Kiwi and set 8. And I don't really like the art on the usual card, but the enchanted I really like it, and I want to start playing with more enchanteds and stuff like that. But yeah, just fundamentally, it's the one card I've looked at that just slots straight into Kiwi, and I didn't really have many problems with it. I think it also, I put in one of my other videos, it made me lean more on using like the looters, the one drops like Mulan and Simba that draw a card, discard a card, so we can clean up the hand a bit more. And like you know have a better hand for when we play Desperate Plan to draw those three cards. And it also made me take the push to cut in the Calhoun finally, which I wanted to cut for a long time. And we're running Tipo instead, so that's another way to clean up the hand, make Desperate Plan a bit better, and you get some ramp, which also sometimes means that you're not inking cards in your hand that you want to ink because your Tipo's already inked you twice on one turn, so you maybe don't have to. It's just loads more layers to it, and I'm really loving it. The testing has been really great, and it's been really interesting to see what other decks are coming out of this meta as well because in my like testing group there's like one particular card that I'm going to cover right at the end that's become very important and very big for a lot of them. And then you play on the online sims and like different environments online and Discord and things like that, and people have gone completely different direction and they've preferred other cards in this meta. So it's that thing of like, testing all of these bubbles and then we all come together eventually. So it's just really quite exciting. Mickey Mouse, the 1010 Quest for 5. I don't know why. I just feel like if there's ways to cheat this out, it's just really an awesome card. You've got things like I'm trying to think of like maybe a Mufasa. You've got Return of Hercules. You've got loads of different ways to cheat this out, and I think if you cheat it out and it's not versus a red deck, it kind of just wins you the game half the time. Because even if they deal with it, it's like it provides almost a board wipe by doing 5 damage to each opposing character, and it has bodyguard, and it puts a 4 turn clock on. So I think someone's really going to cook with this one, and that's about all I can say. I think it's one of them cards that if you pack, probably don't just trade it away or like sell it straight away. Probably keep it around in your thing. But I can't remember actually the massive reason why I put this on my cards to get in the new set and pack. But I think someone's really going to cook them. I think this card's going to be quite interesting. I think Quest for 5 is just the part that gets me the most. And it's a 10-10. There are ways to deal with it. You can play Bruno and stuff like that. But using the abilities that cheat out characters for free, like Return of Hercules, is like the most important thing, I think. But yeah, not much more to say on that one because I can't fully remember why I put it there. Namari, I think I'm pronouncing that right now. I think it really might become a steel staple. I don't know. Just being able to be this huge attacker on board, you can take out like any location with it. That draw one, discard one can be really good in Amber Steel and really good in a Sapphire Steel ramp deck. Cleaning up the hand and getting you to the next whole new world. I just think overall it's pretty impactful. Card. I think the 5 strength, 5 health, sorry, doesn't really help it very much, but I think it just seems quite important. You get it on play as well. You can start and draw a card and discard a card. Set it up as your singer for a whole new world, so Amber Steel can take advantage of that, and so can Sapphire Steel Wheel. So yeah, overall, I just think this one's a really interesting one. I think it might even take those slots of like Tragic Beast post rotation as well, and that's what a lot of people got to think about is like going into rotation. I think a lot of people want to get cards that are very similar to it, and this card is very similar to what Tragic Beast does. That you don't get to gain an extra card advantage every turn. But it's a like the thing. It's kind of built in one Tragic Beast because Tragic Beast gets to do these damage buff if he's taken damage and this just gets it by the cards in the discard, which is pretty cool. And then you get to cycle the hand and draw and discard things. And like I think with like Emerald Steel, you sometimes get to a point where your hand is like the extra card you drew from like Tragic Beast could just be like another 1-drop Diablo or Cove. So it's like discarding that isn't really the worst because there's a lot of like dead draws that could possibly happen later on, and you don't really care if they're in your hand or in your discard anyway. You probably won't do anything with them. So yeah, I think it might be a straight Tragic Beast like swap for a lot of people going to post rotation, but again, just really interesting card. I've got Rhino in here as well. I was playing the what's it called? The Jafar um little expansion thing they give you the play against Jafar. I was playing that Valley, and Rhino just seemed really huge. I know a lot of people had mentioned that he was really huge as well. I think like Amber Steel players always want to try shift on two like the minute they see them. Like I remember Vanellope got a lot of play. Newland was like tried out a little bit. I remember. And like Queen Shift is still quite popular as well because they get to see the whole new world from that one. But resist +2 is actually pretty big. You can't just tap it with like a fire the cannons and then like run something into it. So it's like weirdly you have to run something into it, then fire the cannons, or like have to find a 3-drop, a 2-drop, like a Smee or something that you want to deal like 3 damage to it to break its epic ball of awesome buff. So it just, and I think for like an aggro style one, if you were playing like a Doc Diggy Hold like Amber Steel, and you could go like you play your 1-drop, you play Daisy, Smee, Lawrence, Rhino, and you've set this insane questing board up that's fairly hard to deal with for a lot of decks, besides maybe a control Amber Steel that could sing some Zeus's. And then they can use Rapunzel value on like any of these characters. You can even like you wouldn't get much draw from Rapunzel healing Rhino, but like to keep his resist +2 up is just awesome as well. So I think he's just going to be huge. I think he's going to be played a lot in these Amber Steel aggro decks. And I have another card that I'm actually going to talk about next rather than my other one, and I just did it very quickly there. I think Amber Steel aggro is going to come back quite strong, and it's a deck that I might have to look at quite a bit. I think Kiwi's got a lot of legs, a lot of power, especially with cards like Arthur and Desperate Plan, seeming quite impactful for us. But Amber Steel aggro might just be able to take the leap and be like the deck to play. Just putting on these big bodies that quest, they just basically got more really cheap, like not really cheap, four is kind of expensive, but to pile on top of Smee, Lawrence, and then play a Rhino, like you've got like loads of great two questers now that you can just get out quite early. And on four, it's kind of strange with Amber Steel, like besides the Rapunzel, they never really had that many amazing things to play on for. I'm probably saying that wrong and forgetting all the Amber Steel cards, but for me personally, it's like sometimes you just play your Rapunzel just to put something on the board on four. So yeah, I could see it in a very aggressive Amber Steel. And they actually come in, I think there's one or maybe two, I can't remember because I was playing the Amber Steel deck in the Jafar Heist, but there's I think one comes in it. So there's also a ton of like staples in that deck. There's like two docks in there. There's like Beyond the Horizon. There's like a bunch of stuff in there that I'd recommend just buying it for the staples, and then play the game because it's really fun. But on top of that, you just get a bunch of like staple cards. And Lady, this is the one that it was strange because again in my testing group, like the card was mentioned that it's going to be very very good, but I never saw anyone like test and play with it. But then I went to play in other environments, and yeah, like everyone was on it. Like you could play Cherno Dogs with it, you could play Amber Steel aggro with it. Like you play a lady and cheat out like a Smee, or you cheat out like a what's it called? Like even Daisy never felt that like low impact. Even Daisy felt like a good thing to play on the board. So just huge card. Being able to go wider, a deck like Churner Dogs or Amber Steel aggro with like the dock builds, they both want to play so aggressive and they want to empty their hand as quick as they can, and having that ability. And I think on top of that, the fact they're just quests for two is mad. Like it's the 2/2 that quest for two. It's probably going to get dealt with, but that's fine because you cheated out something that probably won't get dealt with, like a Smee or a Daisy, a thing that has a better body there. So yeah, it's just awesome. Even like a Piglet felt horrible. Like the only answer I could really think of was Ursula singing "Let the Storm Rage On" twice. But this going into the new set as well, post rotation, just like these aggressive decks that can cheat out characters and go wide really fast. Yeah, just an awesome card. Like I imagine that's going to be this and the Rhino are enough cards that Amber Steel aggro players have a lot to think about and a lot to play with. Liquid Von Drake is this card that I think a lot of people said was going to bring Amber Sapphire into the forefront and was going to make it very playable, and everyone wanted to, jump up and joy about it. I haven't seen one Amber Sapphire deck be that impactful yet. Of course, you have a lot of amazing Amber cards, a lot of amazing Sapphire cards. I haven't seen a combination of all the cards together that have made anything very good. So kind of skeptical about it, but I think if someone ever cracks it, these are just going to rocket in price. They're already at $5, which I don't know how much is conversion rate, but it just yeah, it feels like the minute someone cracks it, it's going to be awesome, and maybe even post rotation because one of the painful things about this is Amber Sapphire doesn't particularly have any good answers for Diablo or like evasions really. So maybe when we rotate out and we get into a less evasive heavy meta, like with genies, I actually think genies stick, don't they? But Diablo alone is like too much of a pain for this deck to for this color combo to sort of deal with it. So I think that needs to rotate out before it sees like huge play. Or you could just play an event and hope to dodge green. But I think greens could be quite big in this set. So yeah, I really like the card. I think it has potential, but of course, if this was just like an amber or a sapphire card, it'd just be thrown into everyone's deck straight away, and like no one would even be questioning it. But because it's in a very awkward color combo, you have to kind of make an entire deck that works around it, which isn't impossible because Amber and Sapphire both have amazing cards, but like yeah, together it's sort of interesting what you'd be building there. And Beyond the Horizon is like the card that everyone's talking about on Twitter. I'm pretty sure every testing group that is playing competitive high level Lorcana is also mentioning it. It's just got some pretty broken lines that you can do with it. You can do the one that was done against me was someone played Prince John into the Muses, and then because they both have ward, I couldn't really interact with that. The only thing I could do was stop it with a Pete. Sing Beyond the Horizon, and discard my entire hand. I draw three. Then they would get the Prince John draw, and then they might hit you with some sudden chills and hypnotizers or whatever else they had. And then of course the new one that I keep seeing on Twitter that I hadn't even thought about was that you play Cinderella, you play Vanessa on two, which would bring you up to seven singing power, the Ursula two cost, and then you would sing it, and then you could play You Have Forgotten Me. I think that one's a little bit harder to do because you'd have to draw into it, and it's like if you draw if you play like four you have forgotten me's or whatever it is you'd play. Or you could do like just choose your opponent, because it is choose any number of players, discard them, and you have a You Have Forgotten Me in hand, and then you play it, but it might impact your draw quite a bit because you kind of also wanted to benefit from the draw power of Beyond the Horizon. But it's just going to be, I think it's going to be huge. This is one of them cards that I think it does go right now in my brain into that Jafar bracket that I mentioned early on, where it's being overhyped. It's being hyped as this like game-changing card, but I generally think this one actually has potential to do it. I think especially when Whole New World rotates out, this will be like the card that people look at. I think in Amber, where you have strong singers, it's not going to be impossible to use. And I think with Emerald Steel, where you have a lot of shifting, like you could play a one drop Diablo, get the shift off, shift beast, then sing it, and like play your Prince John the next turn or whatever, or not even play the Prince John, just do it for the disruption. It's actually fairly not that hard to get this to get this seven cost song to be sung, because it has a sing together effect. And it's just pretty mad like how powerful this card is, and it's fine for, I think for decks like Kiwi. The first time it happened to me, like of course I wasn't preparing for it, so I was playing up my hand, preparing it for like maybe being hit by a couple sudden chills or whatever. I had a very good line. I was going to get into like Cogsworth down, but I played a Pete early. Then they played Prince John and Muses. Then they did the double sing, took my entire hand, took my Cogsworth, and I was left with just nothing really playable. But I think with a deck like that, and maybe even the Amber Steel aggro that I keep mentioning, they're able to just dump the hand and just say like, if you Beyond the Horizon me, that's fine because I wouldn't mind the card draw. If you don't, there's a dock in my hand, so I'm going to play that instead. I think you can get some interesting points with that. But I think the big control decks, I guess maybe Ruby Amethyst is the main one to think about. I don't really know how they deal with it because they want to harbor this big hand. They mulligan very specifically for this nice hand. The same with like Ruby Sapphire. They'll be playing visions and things like that, especially the workshop builds. I don't know how they do it. They're going to be crafting out these perfectly good hands, and then you just get hit with Beyond the Horizon, draw three new ones, and then if they have any more disruption, like I say, sudden chills or you have forgotten me, that you get hit even more, so you just lose even more card advantage, and you kind of just get pushed out of the game. So it feels like Beyond the Horizon is going to make it to a point where the only control decks that will be viable is Amber Steel, maybe if they like leaned more towards a control traditional field, and Emerald Steel with their full discard and control. And then the other decks that are going to be viable are just like really aggressive decks that don't really care too much about hand disruption. They're just going to throw all their goons on the board and turn everything sideways. So yeah, overall, I think Beyond the Horizon has the biggest. I wish it wasn't enchanted because that would just been like ridiculous amounts of money. But yeah, I think it has the ability to be meta warping. Like I say, Ruby Amethyst, what can they really do versus you if you're going to play Muses? You're going to play Prince John Muses and sing it. They can try hand dump, but even then you're kind of fine with that because they'll just be dumping cheap characters and then you just sing some removal. You can even with the Muses, like if you had something else out that could sing it, you could Muse bounce things back to the hand, then sing the. It's just crazy how far you can go with it. How far you can go. That's a Sapphire card. Um, but yeah, it's. I think it's just going to push out a lot of these Amethyst decks that want to just sit on these giant hand sizes and just force us into playing very low to the ground, very dump your hand signer styles. And then the control decks, as I say, that'll be left with maybe Amber Steel and Emerald Steel, but I'm not that good at Lorcana, and I don't know if my prediction is correct. I'm probably again, I've only tested with my group, and then I've tested like I've gone into different environments to see what other people are coming up with. But overall, like there could be some combo that I'm not even thinking about. I'm pretty sure the Ruby Sapphire players will still not want to give up their Ruby Sapphire, and I've been thinking of some crazy new builds for it. I didn't look like they got many cards this set, but they can always look back at older cards and say like, well, this card will help me into that matchup. So yeah, those are sort of the cards I think I am the most interested in the set. There's only a handful there, but it's surprising sometimes. It can be just one card that, like last set before the ban, it was like a Tamatoa and a Scrooge, and that was enough to like meta warp, or one Sapphire Coil was enough to like meta warp the entire thing and like change everyone's builds to try and play around the Sapphire Coil. So yeah, that's all my thoughts and the cards that I'd expect people. I'd say you'd want to go for and set 8 launches.